Ethan Parker wiped the sweat from his brow as he worked on the hull of the small mining station orbiting a gray, lifeless asteroid. The station had been his home for the last 5 years, and the cold metal corridors felt both familiar and lonely. He had no family nearby, no friends visiting, just him, the station, and the endless darkness of space outside the thick glass windows. Ethan liked space, though. He liked the silence, the quiet hum of machines, and the feeling that he could fix almost anything. Wrenches, circuits, engines, he knew them all. He liked the feeling of solving problems that no one else wanted to touch. That feeling made him useful. That feeling made him alive. He had just finished repairing a damaged solar collector when the station's comm unit crackled to life. It was faint at first, a soft pulse in the distance, almost like a heartbeat. Ethan frowned and leaned closer. "Station, do you read me?" a voice said. It wasn't human. It was mechanical, broken, and warped by distance. It made no sense at first, but the pattern was clear. Someone or something was calling for help. Ethan's heart raced. Distress signals weren't rare in space, but this one was different. He had heard signals from ships before: traders, miners, patrol ships, but this felt alive. The pulse was steady, almost nervous, like a living being breathing for help. He quickly pulled up the ship tracking systems. On the old sensors, a massive object was drifting nearby. Its shape was enormous, far bigger than any cargo ship, more like a small battleship from old Galactic records. The hull was dark, scarred, and pitted, as though it had survived countless battles and years of neglect. "Whatever it is, it's huge," Ethan muttered. He could barely make out the name etched faintly on the hull, a series of letters and numbers that made no sense to him, but the ship seemed to sense him noticing it. The pulse in the comms grew stronger, more insistent. Ethan's curiosity overpowered caution. He suited up in his old repair suit, checked his tools, and grabbed a portable computer. He had been alone for years, but something about this ship made him feel he wasn't alone this time. The station's small shuttle groaned as it lifted off, moving toward the drifting giant. As Ethan approached, he could see more details. The ship was covered in scars and dents, but it had a strange beauty. Its surface was covered with strange lines and panels that seemed to glow faintly. The closer he got, the more he felt the ship was alive. The pulse from the comms matched the rhythm of his own heartbeat now. When he reached the docking bay, Ethan took a deep breath and slowly opened the airlock. The interior of the ship was dark and quiet. Dust floated in the dim light of flickering panels. The corridors were enormous, far taller than any human-built station he had seen. Pipes and cables ran along the walls, humming faintly, as if the ship itself was breathing. Ethan stepped carefully, listening to the echoes of his boots on the metal floor. He tried to access the ship's control panel, but the interface was alien. Symbols and lights moved on their own, almost like the ship was trying to communicate with him in a language he could not understand. Then it happened. A voice, faint and distorted, came from the speakers. "Human. Help. Please." Ethan froze. He had expected a distress call, maybe some automated message, but this felt different. The voice was almost alive, almost desperate. He responded cautiously. "I'm here. I can help." What happened?" There was a pause, and then a rush of mechanical sounds, almost like a sigh. "Abandoned. Left. Danger comes." Ethan swallowed. Danger? He knew that deep in space, danger was everywhere. Pirates, rogue drones, alien raiders. But this ship, it was calling him specifically. Something about the voice felt personal. He moved deeper into the corridors, following the pulsing lights and strange mechanical hums. Everywhere he looked, the ship showed signs of age and battle. Scorched marks lined the walls, and some doors hung open, twisted and broken. Yet despite its state, the ship seemed to guide him, as if it wanted him to find something. Finally, he reached a massive chamber, the heart of the ship. Panels floated in midair. Holograms flickered with unknown symbols, and a soft golden light bathed the room. Ethan walked slowly, awed by the size and complexity. Then he saw it. A massive core, a glowing orb of energy that pulsed like a beating heart. The ship's voice echoed from every surface, stronger now, almost urgent. Human, repair, awaken. Ethan approached the core. The air around it hummed with power, warm and alive. He could feel it vibrating through the floor and up into his bones. He touched a panel nearby and felt the energy respond to his hands. For hours, Ethan worked. He repaired circuits, replaced broken conduits, and reprogrammed ancient systems. The ship reacted to his touch. Lights flickered on in response to his movements. Doors opened as if inviting him further. And the hum of the ship grew stronger, almost like it was talking to him in a language only he could understand. During a break, Ethan sat on the floor and looked around. He realized something remarkable. This wasn't just a ship. It was a living machine. It had survived alone in the void for decades, maybe centuries. And now, it had found him. As he rested, he noticed that the ship's voice had become more coherent. Human. Chosen. Destiny. Ethan laughed quietly to himself. Destiny? He had never thought of himself as special. He was just a mechanic, a fixer of broken things. But the ship seemed to believe in him. He continued working through the ship's labyrinthine corridors. Every room he fixed revealed more mysteries. Strange weapons that seemed to respond to thought, engines capable of speeds that defied human imagination, and rooms that held maps of stars he had never seen. The ship was vast, and every corner held secrets waiting to be unlocked. Hours turned into days. Ethan ate little, drank what he could carry, and slept only in brief moments on the cold floor. But he didn't mind. The work was addictive. Each repair, each hum of a system coming alive, gave him a thrill he had never felt before. He was not just fixing a machine. He was waking a giant from a long sleep. One evening, while repairing a control panel near the ship's bridge, Ethan felt the first real connection. A screen flickered to life, showing a star system in chaos. Human. Threats. Galaxy. The voice said urgently. Protect. Survive. Ethan's mind raced. The ship had seen wars, battles, and destruction. It had been left alone, abandoned by those who once controlled it. Now, it was calling him to something greater. He didn't fully understand, but he felt a responsibility he had never felt before. He spent another long night in the engine room, tightening conduits and aligning energy flows. Sparks flew, lights glowed, and the deep hum of the engines grew louder. It was as if the ship was waking fully, responding to every move he made. By the third day, the corridors were alive with light and energy. Panels that had been dark for decades glowed, doors opened with ease, and a faint vibration ran through the floors. Ethan realized that the ship was no longer just a machine. It had become his partner, sensing his intentions, learning from his actions, and guiding him toward its ultimate restoration. As he prepared to leave the engine room, the ship spoke again. Human. Prepared. Destiny awaits. Ethan paused. He looked at the massive vessel around him. Its scars, its size, its power. He felt a mix of awe, fear, and excitement. He knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was full of dangers, and now he had a tool, a partner that could change everything. He sat down for a moment, breathing deeply, feeling the vibration of the ship under him. He had never imagined that a human mechanic like him could hold the fate of an entire starship in his hands. And yet, here he was, chosen by a machine older and wiser than any he had ever known. The ship pulsed softly, almost as if it was pleased. Ethan smiled. He knew that the journey ahead would be dangerous. He knew that the galaxy held threats that he could not yet imagine. But for the first time in his life, he felt ready. He was not alone. He had a mission, and the ship had chosen him for it. With that thought, Ethan stepped into the corridor, leading deeper into the heart of the ship. Sparks flew along the walls. As panels realigned, lights danced across the metal surfaces, and the hum of the engines grew stronger, more confident. For the first time in centuries, the giant starship felt alive, and its heartbeat was now tied to a human's hands, mind, and courage. Ethan Parker had answered the call, and the galaxy would soon feel the impact of what he was about to awaken. He did not yet know how vast the ship's power could be, or what dangers awaited him outside, but he felt a strange calm in the growing energy around him. The ship was no longer forsaken, and he was no longer just a human mechanic. He was the one the giant had chosen, and together they would face whatever lay ahead. Ethan Parker had spent nearly a week inside the giant starship, and already he felt a strange bond with it. The ship's systems had begun to respond to him almost instinctively. Panels that had once resisted human touch now flickered to life when he approached. Doors opened before he reached them. Corridors adjusted lighting as if to guide him, and the hum of the engines seemed to echo his own heartbeat. He moved carefully through the bridge, examining a complex control array. The layout was unlike anything he had seen, but he began to understand it by watching how the lights and symbols shifted. Each adjustment he made caused the ship to react, almost like a pet learning new commands, but far more intelligent. He realized that this ship wasn't just a machine. It was alive, and it was learning from him. Ethan smiled quietly. He had always loved fixing things, but this was different. He wasn't repairing a simple engine or a damaged panel. He was awakening a starship that had been abandoned for decades, maybe centuries. And in doing so, he was discovering technology far beyond human understanding. He turned toward a massive engine chamber. The room was enormous, stretching further than his eyes could follow. Tubes and conduits snaked across the walls, and strange glowing crystals pulsed with energy. The main drive core lay at the center, surrounded by a protective cage of alien metal. He had no blueprint for this, no manual. He could only rely on his experience, intuition, and the subtle guidance of the ship itself. Ethan knelt beside the core and placed his hands on the control panel. A wave of warmth ran through his body as the core reacted to his touch. He could feel the energy inside the ship pulsing, waiting for him to unlock it. He adjusted some conduits, tightened a few loose circuits, and slowly, the core began to glow brighter. The ship vibrated softly, almost like it was sighing in relief. Hours passed. Ethan barely noticed the time. He moved from one section of the ship to another, repairing broken panels, replacing damaged circuits, and calibrating engines that had not run in decades. Every repair he made brought a response from the ship. Lights would pulse in patterns he did not understand. Doors would open, and the corridors would hum with energy. By the third day, Ethan had begun to explore deeper sections of the ship. He discovered storage rooms filled with strange materials, weapons that seemed to respond to thought, and chambers that held alien maps of star systems humans had never charted. One room contained what appeared to be living quarters, though they had long been empty. Strange holograms flickered to life when he entered, showing scenes of the crew who had once lived there. Ethan touched one of the holograms, a faint figure of a human-like alien standing by a control panel. The figure flickered and then disappeared. Ethan felt a chill. This ship had once carried life, but now it was empty, waiting for someone to bring it back to life. And somehow, it had chosen him. He continued his work, moving carefully through the massive corridors. In the engine room, he found a set of controls that seemed to be for weapons. Ancient laser arrays and energy cannons lined the walls, rusted and dark. He touched a panel, and a holographic display of the weapons appeared. The ship's voice spoke softly. "Human. Awaken. Prepare." Ethan frowned. "Prepare? Prepare for what?" He could feel the power of the weapons, even inactive, and he realized that if fully restored, this ship could be more powerful than anything he had ever imagined. It could protect entire star systems or destroy them. The thought made him nervous, but he pushed the fear aside. He had a job to do. Over the next 2 days, Ethan worked tirelessly. He repaired energy conduits, replaced worn-out circuits, and recalibrated the ship's engines. Each system he fixed made the ship react. Panels lit up, doors opened smoothly, and the hum of the engines grew louder, more confident. The ship was waking, responding to his touch, and it seemed to be teaching him in return. One night, while adjusting the energy flow in the main engine, Ethan heard a new sound. It was faint, almost melodic, like a song sung by the ship itself. He looked up at the glowing core. The ship's voice, now clearer, spoke directly in his mind. Human, chosen, protect, learn. Ethan froze. The ship was speaking to him inside his head. He had heard the mechanical voice before, but this was different. It was personal, almost gentle. I don't fully understand," he whispered. "I'm just a mechanic. I don't know how to protect anything." The ship's pulse slowed slightly, as if considering his words. Then it sent a vision to him, a scene of distant star systems under attack, alien fleets sweeping through space, planets burning, and countless lives at risk. Ethan gasped. He realized the ship had seen wars, battles, and destruction that humans had never even imagined. And now, it wanted him to help stop it. Ethan spent the next day in the weapon control room. The panels were old and unfamiliar, but he began to understand them by trial and error. He adjusted targeting systems, aligned energy beams, and tested each mechanism in small bursts. The weapons responded instantly, humming with power. He realized that these weren't ordinary weapons. They were adaptive, able to change based on the operator's intent. As he worked, he felt a growing sense of confidence. He had faced many challenges in his life: broken engines, failed systems, and dangerous repairs, but nothing compared to this. And yet, with every success, the ship seemed to trust him more. It shifted energy, aligned systems, and even anticipated his actions. Together, they were becoming a team. Ethan decided to explore the ship's bridge again. The controls were massive, far beyond what a single human could operate, but he could feel the ship assisting him. He placed his hands on the main console, and the ship's voice spoke clearly in his mind. Human. Learn. Understand. Ready. He nodded. "I'll do my best," he said aloud, though he knew the ship could hear his thoughts. The controls responded to his touch, lights flashing, holograms appearing, and a map of nearby star systems displayed before him. Ethan could see planets, fleets, and even drifting debris from ancient battles. The galaxy was alive, and he could feel the stakes of what he was doing. By the 5th day, Ethan had begun experimenting with the ship's mobility systems. The engines roared to life for the first time in decades, vibrating the hull and echoing through the massive corridors. The ship moved gently at first, responding to his commands. Then faster, sharper, and more precise. It was unlike any vessel he had ever piloted, but with the ship's guidance, he learned quickly. He took the ship for a short trial run near the asteroid belt. The stars blurred as the vessel accelerated, engines glowing with energy. He could feel the ship thinking, adjusting, predicting. It was alive, aware, and now fully dependent on him. The feeling was both thrilling and terrifying. During the trial, he encountered a small alien scouting drone. It hovered silently, scanning the area. Ethan's heart raced. He had never fired a weapon from this ship, but the controls responded to his instincts. Energy beams shot from the ship, disabling the drone without destroying it. He realized the weapons were intelligent, able to assess threats, and act with precision. Ethan landed back at the station, breathing heavily. The ship's voice spoke softly. "Human? Progress. Ready." Ethan smiled. "I'm ready," he said. "I'll keep learning. I'll make you strong again." Over the next several days, he continued his work. He repaired damaged systems, tested weapons, and explored hidden sections of the ship. He discovered a room filled with alien archives, containing records of ancient wars, lost civilizations, and technology that far surpassed human knowledge. He spent hours studying the data, learning from the ship and the archives simultaneously. The bond between Ethan and the starship grew stronger. The ship seemed to understand him in ways no human ever could. It anticipated his movements, guided his repairs, and even protected him from hidden dangers. Broken panels realigned, energy flowed smoothly, and strange alien machines hummed to life as he worked. One night, as he rested in the engine room, Ethan thought about the galaxy beyond. He knew the ship had power beyond imagination. It could protect entire planets, maybe entire systems. But with that power came responsibility. He had been chosen by a living machine, a vessel capable of shaping the fate of stars. And now, he had to learn how to wield that power wisely. The ship pulsed softly, almost like a heartbeat in the quiet of the corridor. Ethan smiled. He had faced many challenges before, but none like this. Together, he and the ship would become stronger, learning from each other, preparing for whatever threats lay ahead. The galaxy was full of dangers, he knew. Alien empires, rogue fleets, and ancient machines waited in the dark. But for the first time, Ethan felt ready. He was not just a human mechanic anymore. He was the one the giant had chosen. And together, they would awaken the ship's full power and face whatever came next. Ethan Parker had spent weeks inside the massive starship, repairing systems, studying alien technology, and learning how to make the vessel respond to him. By now, the ship moved almost instinctively with his commands, and he had begun to understand the strange intelligence within its systems. He felt a sense of pride. For the first time, he was not just a human mechanic. He was a partner to something far greater than anything he had ever known. But pride and preparation could not erase the reality of the galaxy outside. Reports from distant stations and communication arrays hinted at an approaching threat. A fleet of alien raiders, faster and stronger than anything humanity had faced, was sweeping across star systems, destroying everything in its path. Ethan knew that he could not hide. The ship was powerful, but he had never faced real combat. This would be the first true test. He moved to the bridge and activated the ship's main systems. Lights flickered to life across the massive console, and the hum of engines filled the corridors. Holographic displays appeared, showing the asteroid belt around the station and the empty space beyond. For the first time, the ship felt alive, not just under his hands, but in a way that demanded action. "Are you ready?" Ethan whispered to the ship, though it could hear his thoughts. The ship pulsed in response. Human, test, engage, survive. Ethan smiled nervously. He had repaired the engines, the weapons, and the defensive systems. But he had never fired the ship in anger. He adjusted the controls and moved the ship out of the docking bay. The engines roared to life, shaking the hull and echoing through the massive corridors. The ship moved smoothly, faster than he had imagined, gliding through space like a living being. As he navigated the asteroid field, a small scout vessel appeared on the sensors. It was part of the Raider fleet, a sleek, fast ship designed to probe and attack weak targets. Ethan felt a rush of adrenaline. This was it. His first real test. He activated the weapon systems. Energy beams aligned along the hull, ready to fire. The ship responded instantly, focusing on the incoming vessel. Ethan fired a single pulse, not expecting much. But the beam shot forward, striking the scout ship with perfect precision. It shuddered and exploded into debris, leaving no trace behind. Ethan's heart raced. The ship wasn't just powerful, it was smart. The weapons had adjusted automatically, targeting the weakest points of the enemy. The ship had learned from him as he learned from it. Before he could celebrate, more contacts appeared on the sensors. A small fleet of raiders, 5 ships in total, were closing in fast. Ethan knew he had to act quickly. He activated the ship's cloaking system, a hidden feature he had only just discovered. The massive vessel shimmered and became nearly invisible against the black of space. The raiders passed by, scanning for the hidden threat. Ethan held his breath, feeling the ship's energy thrumming beneath him. Every sensor, every panel, every weapon responded as if the ship itself were guiding him. As the raiders moved away, Ethan deactivated the cloak and prepared for a counterattack. He had learned to use the ship's energy projectors to create illusions and decoys, confusing enemies before they even knew what was happening. A pulse of light shot from the ship, creating multiple holographic duplicates of itself. The raiders fired at the illusions, wasting their energy on targets that weren't real. Ethan grinned. The ship was teaching him tactics beyond human warfare. With each movement, he learned how to combine human intuition with alien technology. He fired again, this time targeting the central vessel of the enemy fleet. The beam struck perfectly, disabling the ship without destroying it. The remaining raiders hesitated, unsure of how to respond. It was then that Ethan realized something. The ship's AI was not just reactive, it was proactive. It anticipated enemy movements, calculated strategies, and even suggested tactics to him through subtle vibrations and pulses. He followed the guidance, moving the ship like a dancer in the void of space. The raiders regrouped and launched a full attack. Ethan felt the adrenaline spike. He activated the defensive shields, channels of energy flowing to every corner of the hull. The raiders fired beams and missiles, but the ship adapted instantly, deflecting attacks and absorbing energy to power its own systems. Ethan maneuvered the ship closer to an asteroid cluster. Using the massive rocks as cover, he dodged enemy fire, while the ship's weapons targeted weak points in the raiders' formation. One by one, the enemy vessels were disabled, their engines overloaded, their weapons neutralized. Finally, the fleet's leader, a massive black cruiser, emerged from the shadows. It was far larger and more heavily armed than the others. Ethan's heart pounded. He had never faced anything like this. But the ship's pulse was steady, its energy flowing smoothly. It was ready. He fired the main energy projector. The beam so powerful, it lit up the surrounding asteroids. The cruiser shuddered, but did not fall. Ethan realized he would have to use the full power of the ship, something he had been hesitant to do. The ship seemed to sense his hesitation. Human, trust, release. Ethan took a deep breath and pushed the control forward. Energy surged through the hull, beams of light extending across the void. The cruiser tried to fire back, but its attacks bounced harmlessly off the adaptive shields. Ethan felt the ship moving with him, anticipating every maneuver, every attack, every calculation. With one final pulse, the cruiser's engines overloaded. A massive explosion rocked the void, sending debris flying in every direction. The remaining raiders, seeing their leader destroyed, fled into the distance. Ethan watched them go, heart racing with disbelief and relief. He sat back in the captain's chair, sweat running down his face. The ship's hum was steady now, almost like it was breathing calmly after the battle. Ethan realized what had just happened. He had faced a fleet far superior to anything he had ever imagined, and together with the ship, they had won. The victory filled him with awe, but also a sense of responsibility. He had seen the power of the vessel, and he understood that it could not remain idle. The galaxy was full of dangers, and he had a weapon now that could shape the fate of entire star systems. Over the next few days, Ethan continued testing the ship. He practiced maneuvers, refined weapon targeting, and learned to predict enemy movements. The ship responded instantly, adapting to his style, suggesting new strategies, and even initiating defensive protocols on its own. It was no longer just a tool. It was a partner, alive and aware, connected to him in a way he had never thought possible. During one test run, he discovered an ability he had not seen before. The ship could generate a protective field that expanded far beyond its hull, shielding nearby areas from attacks. Ethan realized that this field could protect entire colonies or star systems if used correctly. The thought filled him with hope and fear. He now held the power to save or destroy on a scale he had never imagined. The days passed quickly. Ethan slept little, ate only when necessary, and spent every waking moment with the ship. He explored hidden chambers, studied ancient alien records, and repaired systems that had been dormant for centuries. Each day, he felt the bond between himself and the ship grow stronger. One evening, while resting in the bridge, Ethan reflected on what he had accomplished. He had awakened a giant starship from a long sleep, faced and defeated a superior enemy fleet, and learned to operate systems far beyond human understanding. He had become something more than a mechanic. He had become a force that could shape the galaxy. But he knew the work was far from over. The alien empire that threatened the star systems was vast and ruthless. They would not forget the defeat, and they would come for him. Ethan understood that he would need to be stronger, smarter, and faster than ever before. The ship pulsed softly, sensing his thoughts. Human. Prepare. Ready. Ethan smiled. He placed his hands on the main console and whispered, "I'm ready. We'll face them together." The ship responded with a surge of energy, as if affirming the promise. Ethan felt the power of the vessel flow through him. He was no longer alone. He had a partner, a weapon, and a mission that stretched across the stars. The galaxy was full of dangers, but now he had the power to face them. And together with the ship, Ethan Parker would ensure that humanity and the innocent lives scattered across the stars would not be defeated. He leaned back in the chair, watching the stars through the massive viewports. The void outside was endless, full of threats and mysteries, but he felt a calm certainty. He had the ship, he had knowledge, and he had the courage to face whatever came next. As the stars streaked past with the ship's speed, Ethan realized that this was just the beginning. Battles would come, empires would rise and fall, and the galaxy would test him again and again. But he had learned the first lesson, that a human mind, combined with a living starship, could overcome any threat. The adventure ahead was dangerous, uncertain, and full of challenges. But Ethan Parker felt ready. He was no longer just a mechanic. He was the pilot of a giant starship, a weapon capable of shaping the fate of worlds. And together, they would face whatever the galaxy dared to throw at them. The stars stretched out endlessly. But for the first time, Ethan felt that he could reach them all. Ethan Parker had spent weeks learning, repairing, and mastering the giant starship. The vessel responded to him like a living being, following his commands instinctively, adapting to his strategies, and anticipating his thoughts. The ship's systems were fully restored, its engines roaring with power, and its weapons ready to unleash unimaginable force. But Ethan knew the real challenge had not yet come. Reports from distant star systems were growing urgent. A massive alien fleet, far larger and stronger than the small raiders he had faced before, was moving toward human colonies. Entire planets were under threat, and the galaxy was in panic. The alien empire had learned of the giant starship and wanted it destroyed. Ethan understood that this was the ultimate test. He stood on the bridge, hands on the massive control panels, feeling the ship hum beneath him. Its pulse was steady, almost like a heartbeat, and Ethan could feel its awareness guiding him. "Are you ready?" he whispered. The ship responded with a strong, vibrating pulse, affirming its readiness. The fleet appeared on the sensors, a wall of black ships stretching across space. Ethan felt a twinge of fear but pushed it aside. He had trained for this moment. The ship had trained him. Together, they were ready. He activated the main engines, propelling the vessel forward at incredible speed. Stars streaked past, and the vast size of the ship allowed it to maneuver with surprising agility. Ethan guided it carefully, weaving between asteroids and debris to approach the alien fleet from an unexpected angle. As the first wave of enemy ships drew near, Ethan activated the adaptive shields. The energy rippled across the hull, forming a protective barrier that could absorb almost any attack. He tested the weapon systems, targeting the frontline vessels. Energy beams shot out, striking with perfect precision. Enemy ships shuddered and exploded, but more kept coming. The alien fleet was vast, and Ethan knew he could not destroy it all alone. He had to think differently. He activated the ship's cloaking system, disappearing from sensors and sight. Then he used the energy projectors to create illusions, dozens of copies of the starship, moving independently through the void. The aliens fired at the duplicates, wasting ammunition on empty space. Ethan guided the real ship through the chaos, striking at the weakest points of the enemy fleet. Every beam, every pulse, every maneuver felt instinctive. The ship reacted to his thoughts, moving like an extension of his mind. He realized that the true power of the vessel was not just its weapons, but the combination of human creativity and alien technology. The alien fleet began to regroup, realizing they were being outsmarted. A massive cruiser, larger than any Ethan had faced before, moved to the center, directing the others. Its weapons glowed with energy, and the hull shimmered with defensive shields. Ethan felt the tension rise. This would be the hardest fight of all. He activated the ship's main energy core. Power surged through the hull, the lights on the bridge glowing brighter than ever. He could feel the energy vibrating through him, almost like it was alive. The ship's voice spoke directly into his mind, clear and strong. Ethan nodded. He had feared this moment, but now he understood. The ship was fully awake, fully aware, and ready. He focused, aligning the main energy projector on the alien cruiser. The beam shot forward, cutting through space like a blade of light. The cruiser shuddered, but remained intact. Its shields were stronger than anything he had anticipated. The battle escalated. The alien fleet fired back, massive beams of energy streaking across space. Ethan maneuvered the ship through the chaos, using the engines to dodge attacks, the shields to absorb blows, and the energy projectors to confuse and disable enemy vessels. The illusions worked, and several ships collided or were destroyed by their own fleet's panic. Ethan realized he needed a different strategy. He activated a hidden system he had discovered in the ship's archives, a gravitational pulse generator capable of altering space around him. He aimed it at the center of the enemy formation. Energy radiated outward, twisting space and pulling enemy ships off course. The fleet broke apart, colliding and spinning out of control. The massive cruiser tried to escape, but Ethan anticipated its path. He fired the main beam again, this time with full power. The energy lanced through space, striking the cruiser's core. The explosion was enormous, shaking the surrounding void. Debris scattered across light years, and the remaining alien vessels fled in terror. Realizing they could not defeat this power, Ethan breathed heavily, amazed at what had just happened. The galaxy was silent for a moment, as if holding its breath. He realized that he had not just survived, he had changed the course of the war. The alien empire had lost a major force, and human colonies were safe, at least for now. He allowed himself a moment to look around the bridge. The ship's pulse was calm, steady, and proud. It had trusted him, and he had trusted it. Together, they had defeated a fleet far larger and more powerful than anything humans had ever faced. The bond between man and machine had proven stronger than the enemy's weapons. But Ethan knew this was not the end. The galaxy was vast, and threats would always return. He needed to prepare for what came next. He explored deeper sections of the ship, activating systems he had not yet touched. Defensive shields expanded, engines were fine-tuned, and weapons were recalibrated. Every system was now at peak efficiency. In the following days, Ethan traveled to nearby star systems, demonstrating the ship's power and its ability to protect human colonies. Word spread quickly. Humans and other species began to see him not just as a mechanic, but as a symbol, a lone human, capable of defending entire worlds with nothing but ingenuity, courage, and a powerful starship. During one patrol, he discovered a hidden alien base. It was heavily fortified, with fleets ready to strike human colonies. Ethan carefully approached, using the ship's cloaking and decoy systems to get close. He studied the base, learned its defenses, and planned an attack that used strategy rather than brute force. When he struck, it was precise. Energy beams disabled weapons. Gravitational pulses threw ships off course, and illusions caused confusion among the enemy forces. The base's core was destroyed without unnecessary destruction to surrounding areas. Ethan realized that the ship's true strength was not just in combat, but in intelligence, adaptability, and careful planning. Every success taught him more. He learned to combine human creativity with the ship's advanced technology, to anticipate enemies, and to act decisively. The bond between man and machine grew deeper. The ship no longer just responded to him, it guided him, teaching him tactics and strategies that no human could have discovered alone. But the galaxy was still dangerous. Reports of alien fleets, rogue commanders, and unknown threats continued to arrive. Ethan understood that he could not fight them all at once. He had to be smart, to choose battles carefully, and to use the ship's intelligence to outthink enemies rather than outgun them every time. He spent nights on the bridge, studying star maps, reading alien records, and testing the ship's capabilities. He discovered energy fields, faster-than-light travel optimizations, and hidden weapon systems that could turn the tide in any engagement. Each discovery strengthened his confidence. He realized that a single human mind, when paired with a living starship, could accomplish what entire fleets could not. One day, while resting in the engine room, Ethan reflected on what he had become. He was no longer just a mechanic. He was a pilot, a strategist, and a hero. The ship had chosen him, but he had also proven himself worthy. Together, they had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. The galaxy had taken notice, and hope spread among humans and allies alike. The ship pulsed softly around him, almost like it was alive in joy. Ethan smiled. "We've done well," he whispered, "but there's more to do." He spent the following weeks traveling between star systems, defending colonies, stopping raids, and dismantling hidden enemy operations. Every action, every battle, reinforced the HFY truth. Human courage, ingenuity, and determination could achieve the impossible, especially when paired with advanced technology. Soon, The galaxy began to recognize Ethan not just as a hero, but as a force that could shape its future. Humans who had been afraid to explore space felt inspired. Others, who had been oppressed or attacked by alien forces, began to resist, knowing that one human and his starship could change the outcome of wars. Ethan understood that this was bigger than himself. He had become a symbol of hope. The ship had become his partner, a living weapon, and a protector of life. Together, they would not only fight for survival but also for the chance to shape the galaxy for the better. And so, Ethan Parker continued his journey, traveling among the stars, restoring systems, and defending the innocent. He knew threats would return, that new enemies would rise, and that the galaxy's challenges were far from over. But he also knew that as long as he and the ship were together, humanity could face anything. The stars stretched endlessly around him, full of mystery, danger, and opportunity. The ship hummed softly, alive and aware, guiding him forward. Ethan smiled, gripping the console tightly. He had answered the call of the forsaken giant, restored it to glory, and together, they had become a force capable of shaping the fate of worlds. The galaxy was vast, uncertain, and dangerous. But for the first time, Ethan Parker felt ready for everything it could throw at him. And with the living starship at his side, he knew that humanity and all those who depended on it would not just survive. They would thrive. The adventure was far from over. New threats would rise, new stars would be discovered, and new battles would be fought. But Ethan was no longer just a human mechanic. He was a pilot, a strategist, and a hero. He had awakened the giant starship, and together, they would shape the galaxy's future, one victory at a time. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, but Ethan Parker felt confident. With courage, intelligence, and the living vessel, as his partner, the galaxy was theirs to protect, and humanity would rise, stronger than ever.